Okay, so our agenda today, we'll do a quick introduction just in case some of you folks don't know who I am. We'll do a quick, we'll do a youth protection overview. We'll talk about compliance, risk management, some best practices, some key takeaways, and we will take any questions. If you folks have questions as we go ahead and put that in the chat or just put that in the chat. Okay. Naomi, do you mind monitoring the chat for that?
I will do that for you. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. So just a quick introduction. I'm Peter Evans. I'm a member of the Eco Rotary of Kaka'ako. I've been the Youth Protection Officer for Rotary District. Oh, I am the Youth Protection Officer for Rotary District 5000. I've been the Youth Protection Officer 2016, 20, 21, 22. I've started working youth services in Honolulu Rotary, beginning in Honolulu Rotary from 2015 to 2017. I've got 25 years of risk management experience in general liability, occupational safety, and health. I am currently the Deputy Director for Installation Safety, and I've been appointed as the risk manager for Marine Corps Base Hawaii. So I take care of our Marines there in Kaneohe. I have two beautiful daughters, Sasha and Tiara. Tiara is also a Rotarian, and my beautiful wife of 26 years, Camille. So our goal, right? Our goal is to keep our keiki safe. But let me ask you folks, and you can put this on the chat, why do you choose to work with youth?
I work with youth because I'm a retired high school teacher and want to stay with kids.
Perfect. A lot of us have experience in the past and we want to bring those experiences to our outreach, and that's wonderful. And youth is our future, absolutely. Love their energy. Encourage them to work within the community, absolutely. I think when we start mentoring the youth, we see residual benefits to that. We saw earlier in the previous meeting, Hinano, who was a new member, has experienced Rotary from her grandfather, and now she is a member. So they're in the next generation we need to inspire, absolutely. Rick, because I refuse to grow up, absolutely. Kara, I'm a former homeschooler. I love mentoring young children for leadership. Absolutely. So as you can see, we've got many, many different reasons why we are in youth services. Yeah, but for me, it's the things we do, right? Youth services brings many opportunities to help the youth within our communities. These are just some examples of the many projects that I've done when I was youth service chair. As you can see down in the bottom left, the Purple Pinky Project, we were talking about polio. This was a fundraiser that we did with St. Andrew's Priory. We raised a lot of money. We had a lot of great collaboration with Central Pacific Bank to do this. And that's me painting a pinky there for, I think, a couple dollars. We made some good money for that cause. But you see a lot of the smiley faces, a lot of the great things we do. For me, the end result is gratifying. Mentorship and positive impact. All right, so we're going to get into the meat of this. Some important resources for us. The Youth Protection Guide. It's really important. We utilize the Rotary Youth Protection Guide for guidance in ensuring that your club is compliant with the standards with Rotary International. Our guide should be used for initial or refresher training, as well as a great resource. The guide can be found online in the District 5000 website under the Youth Services page. That link below, I know it's a long link. I'll make sure that everyone gets a list of links by the end of today. So you can take a look. We can find a lot of the things that we need in the District 5000 website. as well as the Rotary International website. But the Rotary Youth Protection Guide really speaks about things like awareness and prevention. It talks about leadership roles and responsibilities. It talks about youth protection procedures such as screening, training, crisis management, etc. It also offers many, many great guidelines and resources in its appendices. So I encourage you all to download this. It's a PDF file. You can take a look at it. There's a lot of great information here. Even for the ones that have been doing youth services for a long time, it's great. It's a great refresher, a lot of good information. It's I know it sounds kind of corny, but it's never boring for me. All right. The next great resource here is the Rotary International, our District 5000 Policy Manual. Again, we utilize the Rotary International Policy Manual, District 5000 Policy Manual, as your governing document for local policy. The manual should be used for initial and refresher training, as well as a great resource. We don't expect you to know everything. We expect you to know where to go when you do have questions. This manual also can be found in the District 5000 website. And again, this manual contains everything you need to ensure compliance, not just with youth protection, but with everything else, such as finance, membership, so on and so forth. This manual also provides important district info that is aligned with Rotary International policy. My go-tos really in this manual are, when you take a look at it, Article 9 talks about youth abuse, harassment prevention policy, and Article 10, which talks about the crisis communications policy. Those are two specifics that I look for when managing the youth protection program. Also, you find some of our forms that we use, the affidavits, so on and so forth. When you look at the appendices, they're all in there. All right. So now I can go on. I really can't go on without sharing our statement of conduct. And I do this for every training event concerning youth protection. This comes directly from Rotary International and our Youth Protection Guide. And it reads this, and I'll read it to you. This is a statement of conduct for working with youth. So Rotary International strives to create and maintain a safe environment for all youth who participate in Rotary activities. To the best of their ability, Rotarians, Rotarian spouses and partners, and other volunteers must safeguard the children and young people with whom they come into contact and protect them from physical, sexual, and psychological abuse. So the key word on there is must. That is a requirement. That's what we are expected to do. It doesn't say should, it doesn't say anything else but must. And so that is a requirement. We have to make sure that our teams know and understand our statement of conduct. So whoever we're working with, our teams are interact chairs, so on and so forth, they understand this. As youth service volunteers, we have an overall responsibility in recognizing abuse and harassment. It's part of protecting our youth. So recognizing abuse and harassment, these are some of the key points here, but not all. Be aware of the signs of abuse and harassment. Be observant. When a youth is known to be cheery and suddenly becomes detached, this may be a sign of a problem. This may be easily observed when you've worked with the same youth, such as an interact club, when you see the same child often. These are some of the things that you can pick up very easily. It's very important not to overanalyze this, but to be very aware. Sometimes changes of behavior must be due to being homesick, cultural adjustments, etc. When I say don't overanalyze, we have a lot of experience. We've had children, we're parents, we're uncles, we're aunties, cousins. We've dealt with children in what we've done, and so use those experiences to know what's right, know what's bothering children. You can also take a look at the Rotary International website. They've got a lot of good information. Even on the policy manual, our District 5000 policy manual has great information on recognizing abuse. Okay. Our heart is with Keiki, but our minds are with compliance. What does that mean, right? We like we mentioned earlier, we have reasons why we work with youth, but we should always be keep their safety and compliance in the forefront. Club presidents, club program chairs, and other officers have the overall responsibility in operating and coordinating club youth activities to include integrating youth protection policies. Our club presidents, their chairs, their programs have specific responsibilities, but that doesn't mean that it stops with them. Our member volunteers should also be aware of some of these responsibilities. Club executives should know all Rotary and district youth protection policies. Implement required training, screening, program logistics, and risk management procedures. Engage regularly with youth program participants to get feedback on programs. Feedback is very, very important. It gives us an idea or gives us a gauge on our impact and how we can make adjustments, such as if we're doing some kind of outreach program or outreach project, we can take a look at some of the experiences that we have, regarding, like, for example, seeing whether or not the correct adult to student or adult to youth ratios were appropriate. So getting that feedback is very important. Report all allegations of abuse, harassment, and other crises to YPO, the Youth Protection Officer, who will in turn disseminate that information to proper district level leaders. Remember to utilize the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and ensure that one person gathers the facts and reports it that right away. The worst thing that we can do is to prematurely report information and send that information up. Factual information is critical, especially during a crisis situation. So that's why it's really important that sending that information or having one person send that information to me so that I can go ahead and put that together and then feed that to leadership is very important. I know we're going pretty quick here. Anyone has any questions so far? All right. So how do we put this all together? How do we track each club's compliance? Well, every club is to review and sign this form attesting to your club's youth protection compliance. Again, this form can be found in District 5000 website or through the link below. Again, I'm not expecting you to write that link. I'll go ahead and put that together for you folks and send that in. Youth send completed forms to YPO at rotaryd5000.org. I, as your youth protection officer, will track compliance and report to the district youth chair, Ryan Char, and he will go ahead and ensure that all clubs are, I'm the one that's ensuring that all the clubs are compliant, and I'm basically reporting to him where we stand. So when you take a look at this District 5000 compliance statement, basically it says, complete and return the signed club compliance statement to chairperson of the District Youth Services Committee. Conduct the Rotary Youth programs in accordance to District 5000 and RI policy. Have a club representative attend a district youth protection training session, which is this classifies as it. Ensure all club members participating in youth service activities are aware of the applicable RI and District 5000 youth protection policies and procedures. Require all volunteers involved with the Rotary Youth programs to complete and sign a youth program volunteer affidavit, and provide copies to the District Youth Services Committee. Follow reporting guidelines for abuse and harassment found in Appendix 4, Policy Manual. Okay. Importantly, here is report all cases of sexual abuse and harassment to appropriate law enforcement authorities immediately, and then to the club and district leaders for investigation. Promptly report all serious incidents. This includes accidents, crimes, early return, and death involving Rotary Youth Program participants to the district governor and the chairperson of the District Youth Services Committee. So club presidents sign this, club youth services chairperson signs this, and it goes on record as your club being compliant. All right, any questions?
I do, people. So this is not the youth program volunteer affidavit. I'm seeing that form here with the signatures. That's another form.
Yes, this is another form. That the affidavit will go over in a few slides down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem, Karen. That's no problem. There are a couple forms. This is very important. Affidavit is important too, but this one shows that you folks are all compliant in District 5000 and Rotary International policy. It states that you folks have gone through training, a compliance training. It's a compliance statement. We want to make sure that everyone is on board and there's no gaps here. So this is a required form.
Thank you.
So I should receive one per club. Okay,
Hey, I have a question, Pete.
sure.
So we off island, can one sign and then scan it to their president for their signature, and you would accept the return form that way?
I'll accept that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Peter's and agent's asking if you would accept also an e-sig.
An e-signature?
Yeah.
It doesn't say anywhere that we can't accept an e-signature. So I'll say yes to that, as long as the person e-signing does print their name and it's legible. So again, it's a club president, and then the club youth services chair sign that. So that will be appropriate. As much as possible, we want wet signatures on there. And even if we send that to me, that will suffice. I know it gets real difficult, but like I said, it doesn't say anywhere that we can't accept it. So, okay. Great questions. All right. So some of the things that we can do for member volunteers is we want to make sure that we screen them. Utilize a program volunteer application form found in the youth services website. We want to interview the volunteer. We want to understand their intent. Remember what I asked for in the beginning when we had that question, why do we work with youth? That's an important question. Why do you want to work with youth? What can you provide us? And these are some of the things that we want to ask. Reference checks, asking, calling people that know this one volunteer, personal checks, criminal background checks. We're going to go over that in a few. That's very important for us. Home visits, host families for youth exchange. Volunteer training is very important, training specific to the program role. So for instance, if you are going to enter an Interact club, if you are doing work with Interact or maybe just a beach cleanup, you want to make sure that we have training specific to that role. We also want to include abuse, harassment, and crisis prevention information. And I'll go over that quickly in a few slides down on our training section. There's a very excellent resource in training. But it's important that we properly vet our volunteers before they go and work with our youth. Member volunteers, that's easy to do. We go out, we interview the people that we know, right? Our own members. But volunteers that come out to help at an event, a one-time event, may pose some challenges. We ask that the clubs be aware of where we're going, who we're dealing with, who are we working with, and in these events, and to ensure plans are in place to make to ensure safety, to ensure that the youth are being monitored. For example, if you have a one-time volunteer and they're like in a beach cleanup, let's say we're doing a beach cleanup with an organization and they've got their volunteers, we want to make sure that our youth are not left alone, and they are with a vetted volunteer rather than just a volunteer that we don't know. Okay. This is the volunteer affidavit, I believe Karen mentioned, but we want to utilize the youth program's volunteer affidavit to screen volunteer applicants. This affidavit is very important. It can be found in the District 5000 website, as well as the D5000 policy manual. We want to please send the completed affidavit to the youth protection officer. That's me. I'll make sure you folks all have my email at the end of this. After completion of the screening process. This is a pretty good guideline, and it's not all inclusive. If you want to add things specific to your local area, you can do so. But records will be retained by the youth protection officer for a period of 3 years after its creation. And this can be found also on this link that I'll go ahead and provide you. But it asks you certain things, right? Voluntary selection, and it really goes over some specific wickets. How long have you known this individual, and in what capacity? You know, do you think this person is well qualified to work with youth? Would you have any reservations about recommending this person to serve as a, interact chair? Can you verify dates of employment? So there's some things here that you want to take a look at when we're properly screening the individual. Also, this is not a public form. The form is public, but the information that goes in it, we want to make sure that we're protecting the privacy of the individual that is applying. So keep it to who needs to see it, and make sure that you forward that to me after completion. Any questions on this?
Peter? So I think
Yes.
there's a question about when these affidavits need to be signed. So if there's a whole big group going to a school, for instance, or doing the Pink Pohoa town, each person does not need to do the affidavit, right? If they're in a group.
Correct. Absolutely. So youth programs volunteer affidavits in the beginning of the year, it's proper to do something like this when we're screening our own members per se, or we are screening members that will continue to work with us in our outreach events. But I understand that we do have these programs, these beach cleanups or outreach events that we may do that this may not be feasible. And so we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing and utilizing volunteers that actually have been vetted and integrate them with other volunteers that have not been vetted. And it all comes down to the planning process. If you know you're having something, let's say a youth program event in the next few months, maybe the next month, then it may serve you right to go ahead and do this affidavit. But first and foremost, we want to make sure our members who volunteer have these affidavits filled out. Right?
Question,
Yes.
is this a yearly thing, one-time thing or other?
Well, this will be retained for 3 years. So if you have one person, this is not a yearly thing. So I would say that when you have somebody new coming in, when you have new members that come in, have them fill this out. This won't hurt if you want to do a refresher and start, and it's really back to the club level. The district and Rotary International only expects this to be done once per volunteer. So there's no recertification on this part. The one recertification that we have to do yearly is the compliance form. All right. Anyone else? All right. So
Oh,
background-
Peter.
Yes.
Regarding the certification form, there were questions about who signs. So if the president is also the youth service chair, they can sign twice.
If the president is the youth service chair, absolutely. They can sign twice.
Okay. And if the president is not attending this, they would still sign as president. And the people that are attending this webinar should be training everybody else in the club, correct?
Absolutely. The information presented here does not just stay with all of us. It gets disseminated to your clubs, and there's a reason why you folks are here, and that's exactly why you're here. I'll make sure that these slides are also posted on the website as well, the District 5000 website, so that you folks can have it as reference. But yes, absolutely. The information that you get here, for those in attendance, please share that with your clubs.
Peter, are you able to show the second page of this affidavit?
I'm gonna have to, I think I have to get off of my screen here.
Okay, so
Actually,
maybe we can.
the affidavit, this affidavit is just one page. And this is it right here. Yeah, I can go ahead and I would have to come off of my screen to share that with you.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And this PowerPoint can be sent out to everybody or posted to the website, right?
Yes, exactly. It'll get posted to the website, the District 5000 website, for everyone to see. And those in attendance, I'll go ahead and email it to you folks.
Okay. So there's a
Yeah, Peter.
question. Sorry.
No, Peter, this is Ryan. This
Ryan.
form I think has been updated. There's a different affidavit form on the website. So I think we do need to make sure that this version is posted. And I think, it would be helpful to maybe clarify the difference between the affidavit and the background check process. But
Okay. Yeah, no problem, Ryan. So the background check process, this complements that. This
Right.
is a screening selection. So as the volunteer comes through, you do an initial screening utilizing the wickets on this volunteer affidavit. The second part of this will include a background check. And
Right,
so
so I
they
think-
both complement each other.
yeah, so just for everyone's clarity here, right? They're actually two different things, but they complement each other here. So
Yep.
you should, in best practices, be doing both. Correct.
Absolutely. And the youth program volunteer affidavit, it helps with the screening process. It does tell you that you do have to go ahead and submit a background check on the affidavit. I apologize, Ryan and folks. This form was actually in the District 5000 website. So you're saying, Ryan, this is the old form?
It looks
Because I think
like
this
it's
is the new form.
the new form.
Okay, all right. So
I
this is
think.
yeah, this came from the website. I'll go ahead and clarify that with you folks, but nevertheless,
yeah,
it's a
This should be
it's just-
clarified on the website because they are two different processes, but they should kind of work in concert together.
Okay, so the youth programs volunteer affidavit is the same title. We'll make sure that you have the correct form up there. I'm presuming that this is the right form. So like what Ryan mentioned, the volunteer affidavit does complement the, it should be the first order of business before you're doing any kind of screening, but it does complement the background check, which is my next thing here. So our background check is conducted by IntelliCorp. It's a reputable organization committed to conducting thorough background checks while keeping your information safe. So how do I obtain a background check? Well, you email Natasha, and then you'll see her email address, natashaclarence777@gmail.com, with the following information: your name, email address, your email address, home, zip code, city and county, county of Honolulu, county of Maui, so on and so forth. You'll wait for an email invitation from YPO at Rotary District 5000.org. YPO, again, is for Youth Protection Officer. And then use a link to go into IntelliCorp's website. That's where you're going to put your information on there. You follow instructions for submitting your information and paying online. The fee is $14.96. This is a fee range to $20.90. Now the fee has gone up 10%, and so this is the correct range on here. It's good for 2 years. Background checks are needed for any volunteer working with youth. Any volunteer awaiting results of a background check, or a one-time volunteer, or a volunteer minor should be accompanied at all times during the event by a vetted volunteer. Okay. We encourage everyone to get background checked. Any questions on this? I know I have one question that keeps coming up every time I do this, it's, I get background check by my employer. Do I still need to get this background check? Absolutely. We just want to make sure that we all vet our volunteers through IntelliCorp, and we just want to make sure that we go through the background check process, have a standardized background check process, I should say. All right. Pretty simple. All right, so I know we're kind of jumping around here, but risk management is very important. And the purpose of risk management, a risk management plan, is to encourage our youth services to consider how they'll provide for the safety of the youth in their care and how they will mitigate those risks. By recognizing unique challenges that are faced by minors, I've put together some points to consider when developing a risk management plan specific to the safety of the youth involved with your club's program. So consider what risks are involved and put plans in place to eliminate that risk or reduce it to an acceptable level. Okay, does the risk, and always ask yourself this, does the risk outweigh the benefit? And I always talk about this sad situation that happened over in the east side of Oahu, where we had a school change their plans in the middle of the day and decide that they're going to go and bring youth out to kayak. Unfortunately, what happened was the kayak flipped over, and one of the chaperones, as well as a child on the kayak, passed away. They drowned. When we take a look at risk management, was this planned? It probably wasn't planned. Did the child have proper life vests? Was weather put into play? Was weather considered? Was the ability of the chaperone to kayak the child out there, were there any issues with that? These are some questions that you have to ask, and unfortunately it ended up as a tragedy. We don't want that to happen here. We want to make sure that in everything that we do, we're planning, even as simple as, and I keep saying beach cleanup because that's easy for me to say, when we're doing a beach cleanup, making sure that we are scoping out the area. Where are we going to go? Where are parents going to pick up these youth after we're done? Where's our muster area? In the case of emergency, how many, what's our emergency plan? What happens when a child is lost? What's our plan then? What are the ratios? These are the things that we have to go ahead and ask ourselves. And I think I go through some of them here. What's the layout of location, space where the program is being held? Is there anything in that space that could pose a danger to the minor? How will the program ensure that the minor is not left alone at any time with an adult? This is important, especially in bathroom situations where there might not be a restroom in a close proximity. We have to know these things. What's your plan in case a child has to go ahead and use a restroom? What are supervisory ratios? Again, if program is in a public place, what measures will you take to supervise minor participants? How will the program handle volunteer staff who are not authorized adults but are participating in the program in a temporary basis? And then again, we mentioned this earlier, how will the minors be dropped off and picked up? Will there be a list of people and people authorized to pick up the minor? Will there be a check-in and check-out process? This is not all inclusive. This is just some bullet points here that have to be discussed when planning an event with youth. Any questions?
Yeah, there's Naomi, want to go through the questions on the chat for Peter?
Okay, so what is considered a youth? Is a college-aged Rotary covered?
Rotary is covered. We're talking anyone under the age of 18. It's a little, I don't want to say a little looser when it becomes time when it's Rotary. A lot of the same measures apply because it is a Rotary function. We want to make sure that risk is mitigated. We want to make sure that what we do is, even though a lot of these college students are 18 above, they are adults. This is any function that they're involved in is a Rotary function. And we have a responsibility to ensure their safety as well. Absolutely. As well as our member volunteers. Our member volunteers are just as important.
Peter, before you move on to the next question, Naomi, I totally second that. Just because by definition a minor is under 18, we have interact clubs with high school students that are 18 years of age. That doesn't mean we should treat them differently as part of this program, especially as they're a part of our interact clubs. So I think we need to take that and use a little bit of a different lens on just the legal definition of minor.
Absolutely. When we talk minors under 18, but this youth protection, the great thing about youth protection and what we do here, it's really risk-based. And so what it integrates into a lot of other things that we do. And so protection, number one, is in the forefront. And like I said, we also want to protect our members as well. So a lot of the things that we do here protect them and our reputation here as Rotarians.
I have a question, Peter and Ryan. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We have a student exchange. She just arrived from France last week, and I know that her host family is fabulous. One of our members is her, I guess she would be her counselor, sort of external counselor. We have two members of our club that are going to interact with this student. And I just wondered to what extent, so if our youth service chair and myself sign the compliance, then are the individuals that will be counseling this exchange student, would it be necessary for them to sign the volunteer affidavit as well and do the background check?
Absolutely. So on exchange, there's a separate set of training that goes along with that, and there's a separate set of vetting that goes through that. You definitely use the affidavit as a guideline and a form to use as you're doing the interviews. I would definitely encourage that. That needs to be done. But when I say there's a second set of processes, that means there's home visits. There's audits that go along with that. So James, we can go ahead and go over that. That type of process can take an entire hour. That's a whole another training event that we could actually do But yes, absolutely. And a lot of the information on that, on Exchange, can be found on the District 5000 policy manual.
To what extent do you require a background check when an individual volunteer Rotarian is interacting with youth? Is it just in the course of an activity, or is it for an event? What's sort of the rule that you require the background check?
Well, our district policy, our youth protection manual states that everyone working with youth has to have a background check. Everyone working with youth has to have a background check. Now, we understand that you may have a one-day event where it may not be feasible because one person's just coming out to volunteer one day and you'll never see them again. In that case, we want to make sure that we do have a vetted background check member volunteer alongside with that person at all times. And that person that has not gone through the IntelliCorp background check, not be alone with children.
Okay,
And that's
got it.
just a precaution that we take.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Kimo. Anything else out there?
Peter, there's a question about, are all club members required to have a youth protection volunteer affidavit on file as well as a background check?
Great question. That is a good best practice because there's not going to be one time where we are going to say that we're not going to work with you. In any of our outreach, there's a high chance that we are going to be working with youth. What Rotary International, what our youth protection guide states is that anyone working with youth has to have one. So you may be a member that never works with youth. Do you need to have a background check? Probably not. But if you know that you are going to work with youth at one point or another, it would be a good best practice for clubs to go through that. The other thing to consider is background checks cost about $19. So is a club going to require their membership to go ahead? A lot of the smaller clubs, absolutely. A lot of the bigger clubs, that's something that may be considered. But there's a lot of questions on that. There's a lot of things that you have to consider when doing the background check. But at the minimum requirement, everyone working with youth, anyone volunteering with youth has to have a background check. Okay. All right. So technology, Zoom meetings or similar platforms are common. Be aware of storing information or pictures or youth, especially on a personal computer. Each program should consider potential risks and develop policies to address them. Review the electronic online safety considerations PDF that was published by Rotary International. This came out about a couple years ago to address some of the questions that came out on online safety, because as we came into the pandemic, of course, we're online for all our meetings. But even though we are moving back in person, we find that Zoom or similar platforms are convenient to use. We got to still make sure that we are mindful of the ways that we could protect the youth. So some of the things that we can do is to establish house rules, making sure that everyone involved or everyone in that Zoom meeting knows that, there's no videotaping, no recording, unless a host records it, no foul language, no profanity, being respectful to others, things like that. The host of the Zoom meeting or any other platform should be a vetted background check member. We want to make sure that we keep it as secure as possible. Now, a question came up on the last one. How are we going to prevent someone from getting their phone and recording, offline? You can't. But when you start to establish those house rules and let everyone know right up front that, there's no, we're going to go ahead and record this. There's no need for anyone to record this. That way you can go ahead and protect individuals, because we don't know what they're going to do with the recordings that they have. Again, on the left side, there's a big link there. Don't worry about that. I'll go ahead and make sure that you folks have that PDF copy of the online considerations. Okay, pretty simple. Now, even though online safety, even though we are really going back to in-person, these Zoom meetings, these virtual meetings still are convenient for us to use. So we just want to make sure that we're integrating that youth protection mindset to things like this. All right. So this is new. Rotary International has developed a youth protection reporting resource. I'm sharing this with you because it's available. I have to share this with you. I would say, though, in a crisis, when a crisis occurs, reporting locally to myself will help to deploy needed action quickly. That means that when you go ahead and report online here, we want to make sure, well, first of all, we want to make sure that in the case of crisis, time is of the essence, and we want to make sure that we're taking care of the crisis right away. And so I'm not sure what the lag will be on reporting online. I will just say that this is available. Do still report crisis, any issues to myself, and I will go ahead and disseminate that through leadership. This is something new. All right. Training. This is awesome. We talked about training, and I recommend going to Rotary's learning platform called learn.rotary.org. It's actually called Learn Rotary. And participating in this webinar specifically, it's called Protecting Youth Program Participants. And I think Naomi talked a little bit about, I think she mentioned this earlier, having a lot of resources, a lot of webinars out there. There are many, many, many programs out there, webinars that we can go ahead and tap into. There's one, I think, on crisis management. This one especially is really important to us in what we do here. And as you can see about this course, they talk about the importance of youth protection. There's a little webinar on protecting youth program participants. And there's some downloads here. The Youth Protection Guide is another area where you can get the Youth Protection Guide, a Rotary Youth Protection Incident Report, and then, of course, a course evaluation. So a lot of things that we can do online here. All right. And this is pretty new for us. All right, so some best practices and some key takeaways. Provide an environment for our youth to grow and become productive adults. This is very important because what we do transcends to what our youth does later on in life. I mean, we are mentors. Even though we go out and we do outreach, a lot of our youth see what we do and they're impacted by it. We also want to recognize and address abuse and harassment. We're not experts at this, or some of us are not experts at this. We want to make sure that we're picking up on key cues and reacting to them right away. Never be alone with a child. That's a good best practice. Always be around the community. Be aware of local policies such as DOE. Especially, this really goes in line with some of our interact clubs. They may have new policies such as when you can meet. Can you meet after school? Where can you meet? Some of the schools may have localized policies. We want to make sure that we're aware of them. Encourage volunteering. Absolutely encourage volunteering, but scrutinize those volunteers. See who are working with us. We want to know, we're all a team. We want to know who's working with us. Be an example, right? No profanity, no offensive behavior, no bad language. Just be very mindful that kids are watching us, youth are watching us, and we are the face of Rotary. When we go out for a Rotary function, people see us, especially when we're wearing our nice blue shirts with yellow, Rotary, swag. We want to make sure that we're portraying our clubs, our district, Rotary International in the right way. Conduct a risk analysis for every activity. Anything we do, we have to take a look at it and plan. We may have just a quick, deliberate type risk management. That's better than nothing. If we know that we're going to, tomorrow we're doing this quick event for literacy, take a look at where we're going to do this at. How many kids are we looking at? How many volunteers do we need? So do a risk analysis for every activity we do. And then you have to ask yourself, what we do is that proper? Is hugging or giving a kiss appropriate? These are things that are part of our culture here in Hawaii, but is it proper to do when we're dealing with youth? A handshake or kind of a knuckles bump may be a better choice. We always have to be mindful of these things. And then we have our Rotary District 5000. I'm really an advocate of advertising our District 5000 website. It's out there. We've got information on district policies, forms, so on and so forth. Utilize that website. Utilize me for anything that you need. Any questions? That took us right up to about, I think, 5 minutes too. Any questions, anyone?
So Peter, if you can recap, when do you need a volunteer affidavit and when do you need a background check?
Okay, perfect. Background checks, you need them anytime you have a new volunteer. A new member volunteer needs a background check done. It's good for 2 years. So when I do my background check, it's good for 2 years. I don't have to do one every year. After that second year is up, then I'll have to do another background check. I'm coming up with a mechanism to track that right now. Right now, all I have is a Excel spreadsheet of who has got their background checks. The problem with that is there's people on that spreadsheet that are no longer members. And so there's got to be a mechanism of, of seeing some continuum and seeing some I guess, updates. On the affidavit is anytime that we do anytime we vet a individual. So it's like a job interview. You go in and you have your sheet of paper with the wickets on there, and it's a job interview. And basically that goes, that's your initial screen. So any volunteer that goes through screening, they just do that one time.
Question.
Yes.
I typed it in the chat earlier. This is Cyrus Tumbaga from Poipu Beach.
Cyrus.
But if I'm the Rotary Exchange Youth Counselor and I did a background check for that, does that count for this, or do I have to do a separate one?
Did you did it for Rotary through IntelliCorp?
Yeah.
You are good to go. And I'll go follow up with that on my list, but you should be good to go. Absolutely. Okay. If you've gone through the IntelliCorp Rotary, as a Rotary volunteer, yeah, that's you're good to go.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Cyrus, did you have another question? You wanted an example, a sample? Cyrus?
Yeah, I think Cyrus was asking in relationship to what I shared in the chat, which is that Honolulu Sunrise. We have a waiver form and a media release acknowledgement in our files that was prepared by one of our Rotarian lawyers. At least the framework of the language was prepared by one of our lawyers in our club. It's not ironclad, obviously. Waivers and releases are never ironclad, but it is a good practice. I can definitely share some of that language with Peter to share it with all of you. What it just allows us to have their parents or legal guardians acknowledge that they're participating in a project or events that have inherent risks, and that they're allowing the use of their media in Rotary, only in Rotary communications, right? I mean, we're not releasing any and we should never be using media for anything non-Rotary related. Thank you. So I could definitely share that with Peter.
No, thank you, Ryan. And that brings up a good thing. I found there to be a lot of forms, a lot of best practices out there. We're not going to stifle enthusiasm. Everyone wants to do the right thing, and we encourage that. What we want to make sure, though, is that we're doing we're doing the standard, what's expected of us as far as the correct Rotary forms. Now, if you do go above and beyond and have a consolidated form that will help you, absolutely bring that in addition to the minimum standards. But yeah, Ryan, you bring up a good point too. Media, there's media releases. I've seen several different media releases on different clubs. That's really important to have. There is a media release form. It's on the district or the Rotary International website. I'll make sure that you folks all have that. But that's really important, especially when folks are taking pictures with their phones. We want to make sure that it's controlled. They know right off the bat that they can't go ahead and post that without prior approval. That's very important. So, but thanks for bringing that up. Anyone else have anything? This is, I want to say mahalo for your time and commitment, with Rotary Club and the youth that we work with. And I say this all the time because you are volunteers. It takes a lot to do what you do. It takes a lot to be here on a Saturday, listening to Peter Evans do this youth protection compliance training. And I really appreciate it. It's really important for all of us. I'm here for you folks. Any questions, don't hesitate to call. That's my cell number there. That's our District 5000 YPO email address on there. Very, very important that I make myself available to you. I was discussing with this to Naomi. I'd like to do some in-persons with the clubs to do some of the training and maybe talk about youth protection to some of the to the clubs out there. So doing in-person, in-person talks, I think will be very important. But I'm here for you. If you call me up at 2:00 in the morning, that's fine. Background checks, again, to Natasha Claren, that's her email address. But I will make this, these slides available to you folks, and then you can call me, text me anytime for any questions.
Peter, maybe we can show them a screenshot if you can go online to show them where your documents are. But before everybody signs off, please turn on your video so we know you're still here. We're going to take attendance. If you don't have the name of your club in your name, please put it in the chat on what club you're representing, because we are taking attendance. And then Peter, if you can queue up your the website so you can show where the documents are.
Naomi, I don't know how to do the chat. I still
Oh.
don't know how to think. So I'm Tracy with Emma Beach Rotary.
Okay.
Hi, Tracy. Hold on
Hi.
real quick.
Okay, Robert, if you want to put your name of your club.
Can you see my screen now, everyone?
Yep.
All right, so this is our District 5000 website right here, and you folks all should be able to log on to this and take a look. A lot of great information, a lot of local information, a lot of Rotary International information. If you go on to, I have to move some of this. If you go on to our service, you go all the way down to youth services, you'll see a lot of information on youth services. Right here on the youth services page, first thing that you'll see is some background check information. But if you go over here to the right, sub pages, you can see.
Oh, I did it.
You can see compliance statements. There's an awesome Youth Protection by L. Griswold. This was done in 2021. Youth Protection PowerPoint. Some of my information, some of my PowerPoints are on here, but you'll have a volunteer affidavit form, some instructions, things on Interact, Rotaract. So anything that has to do with youth protection, you go down here to resources, you'll see youth protection training guide, training from November 2020 that I did. You have the youth protection guide that's on here. Interact guide for sponsors, Rotaract guide for district reps. So there's a lot of great information on here. It's just a matter of you going on and just playing around with it. Now a lot of the information that you find here, you can also find on the Rotary International website, but I would stick with this first, go through here and just kind of just play around with it. There's a lot of good things here. We have the affidavit form here. Let me see. Somebody had a question on what page 2 was. And so this is the affidavit form. Very easy to do. And then you have the waiver and release here on page 2 and the signatures. So the signatures, as you can see here, signature of the applicant, the date the background check has been cleared, and the date the background check expires. All right. And that takes us to about 11:05. Anyone else have anything?
I have a
I'd
question,
like-
Peter.
yeah,
Yes.
I'd like to note something, if I'm looking at this thing correctly. On this affidavit, that's a funny way of, I mean, it doesn't have a place for a notary, so I don't know, you got some other lawyer that would disagree with me on what you call an affidavit, because an affidavit is one that a notary signs and you got to go to a bank and pay somebody. Otherwise, it's an affirmation under penalty of perjury that the thing I'm saying is true and correct. So I guess I'm just a stickler for language, but I wouldn't call it an affidavit. I don't know where you're getting that word from. And if that's from somebody higher up than me, then okay, I guess I could argue with them, but that's not the appropriate word.
Okay, well, I
I
appreciate
mean, it's
that.
perfectly fine to say under penalty of perjury, this is what I say. I mean, I can't see it right now what the thing looks like, Peter. So
Yeah, it'll be difficult to see. I guess you would have to print it out, but it is the form. I didn't make that form up. That form came from Rotary International. It is on our website, and so I can definitely note that concern.
yeah, you can tell them back at RI in Evanston, maybe they call it something different in Illinois, but that's not my understanding. And that's
Gotcha.
why it gets to be confusing, because, to me, when I'm looking at it, I mean, does that mean that everybody has to do this, has to go and get it notarized by a notary? That's
Yeah,
what an
no.
affidavit is. Anyway,
Okay. No, I got
check
you.
it out.
Thank you.
Peter,
Yes.
yeah, that was a very intelligent perception, Adrian. In practice, in law practice, we often would use a declaration instead of an affidavit. It is essentially the same, but does not require notary. So if you're examining what to use, what's appropriate, re-examining that at some point, you might want to just ask whoever is working with that form whether it could be done as a declaration. On the other hand, my recollection, and it may be faint, is that the declaration that is being used, it's a question of whether that is that has its own set of requisites. So you have to look at what that would be.
Absolutely, Robert. I agree with you. And I just pulled up the definition for affidavit, and it does say written statement confirmed by oath or affirmation for use in court. So we can send a note up. I think the spirit of the whole thing is a form put together to help screen the applicants, the volunteer applicants, but the verbiage has to be right too. So I'll go ahead and make note of that and bubble that up. Absolutely.
Kara has her
I
hand
mean,
up.
it would at least have to say that I swear under penalty of perjury that that the information I provided is true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. I don't know. I don't see that. So I don't know if the form says that, but if it just says, I know this person, and they signed it, that's not an affidavit or a declaration. So anyway, just got to check the words.
No,
All
I
right.
appreciate that input. Thank you. Hey, Kara.
Hi. Okay, so I was reviewing my notes. So I did see the youth program volunteer affidavit form that you all were speaking about. Wasn't there another form? There was a form that you mentioned before, and I didn't see it in your webpage.
Oh, it's the compliance form. We talked about the compliance form. Yes,
yes.
that's on there. I'll make sure that you folks get the that compliance form is also on the District 5000 policy manual. And you'll find that on the webpage. So I'll make sure that we get that out to you. I'll send you a link.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure I had those two forms.
Absolutely.
Peter, I've got a question.
Yes, Robert.
I'm just starting with Rotary actually on Monday.
Oh, welcome.
I'm coming in primarily to address youth areas, which is why I'm here. But I know that all of these, they're forms that you've referenced that it's suggested that we have to go ahead and start to have people fill out. But I have to believe this has been done before, that you've had meetings, on an annual basis, and that I'm not walking in, with a blank, starting day one, haven't even started day one. And it's like, I've got to do all these things. I have to believe that someone at Pearl Harbor Rotary has done this before, has submitted these forms, done background checks. Is that fair?
It's very fair, Robert. And well, first of all, welcome aboard. We appreciate you being here, and excited for you to join us here at the Youth Protection or Youth Services. But absolutely, this is not our first rodeo. We do this every year as an annual requirement. And so whoever was the Youth Services chair, I'm gonna have to look that up, last year had submitted all the necessary components that we were asking for, and especially the background checks and the compliance certificate or compliance form.
Is there a way for you to get back with me regarding that question?
Absolutely, Robert. Yeah, that's no problem. I'll make a note of that.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Robert. What was your last name?
F as in Frank, R-I-J-A.
And you're at Pearl Harbor.
Right. But
okay.
You've got my email address by way of what we're doing right here, yeah?
I wanted to make sure I got the right Robert here. So that's all. We would have your email address through Club Runner.
Okay.
Yep.
So Robert,
Absolutely.
talk to David Arashiro in your club, because he's been involved with the Interact for many years. In fact, he did one of the RILA camps years ago. So everybody, let's give Peter a hand for his presentation. And can everybody unmute? And we're going to sing happy birthday to Peter because he's doing this on his birthday. Okay, unmute everybody. Ready? Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy
Birthday, dear Peter.
Happy
birthday
To you.
to you and many more.
I love you all. I love you all. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I did get up this morning with a sore back. I don't know. It must be the age, but I appreciate that. I'm glad that this is not the Rotary chorus, but the Rotary youth services. So Rotary chorus, but yeah. But I love you folks. I appreciate all of that. Thank you. And I'm